Thank you, Madam Chairman. Chairman Woodson, if you would prefer, I could update you on Texas right now, or we can wait till tomorrow, whichever.
I'm sorry. I would love to know the update now if members don't object. That'd be fantastic.
Okay. So, Madam Fisheries Chair, if you can give me just a moment to segue off to the side. Everybody knows about all the flooding and the storms that are going on in Texas, Louisiana, and that part of the world. I guess to start off, the director of the Wildlife Agency in Texas and I've been friends for quite some time. Because we're alphabetical, Tennessee and Texas, we always sit together when we have our meetings. So I've been emailing him back and forth to see how they're doing, what they need, and told him, obviously, if they needed us, that we stand ready to come and help if we can. And he told me that things are a real mess and that they've got so much more rain coming. They don't know exactly what they're going to do, but they already have 100 officers from Florida and Louisiana that are helping them, as well as some of the other surrounding states. And in order for us to go to Texas and help, we have two options. If we just went on our own, we're outside of the TMAC agreement, the Tennessee Emergency Management Compact, that we have with all the other states in the Southeast. And it's in place for two reasons. One is because it needs to be an organized effort. So we found out in Katrina, as we had in earlier, but in Katrina especially, so many people who want to help and who volunteer to help go there with the best intended circumstances, but then they become their own problem because food is short, water is short, fuel is short, and all those kind of things. So when those people show up, they need fuel and food and water and all those other things, so they become a manageable problem themselves. So second part of that is if we go on our own without that, in addition to maybe adding to the problems they already have, there's no reimbursement, even though it's a federal emergency contract that's going on. We only get reimbursed if we're part of the compact. After Katrina, the Gulf Coast states formed their own compact in addition to that, which deals with hurricane response. And they activated that already, so they're in that mode. And the director in Texas is Carter Smith, and then, of course, I'm Ed Carter. So whenever they yell, "Hey, Carter," we both answer. And so we've been trying to work through this the whole time. But anyway, he said, "Thank you all so much for your offer. I stand ready. If it gets any worse, I'll put through the EMAC request, and that will go through FEMA and through the Tennessee Emergency Management Contract, and we'll deploy whatever people that they ask us for and whatever we have ready." Our folks are always ready to go. We've had numerous phone calls from all of our officers across the state, as well as other people in other agencies, other divisions who want to be able to help as well. So just long story short, there are Tennesseans in Texas now, but they're under different, they're not the law enforcement officers from the resource agencies. They're providing a different thing, urban search and rescue teams that usually work in urbanized settings when something like this, whether it's a tornado or a flood, whatever it is, they have a specialized service, and that's what they're doing now. So I guess just to summarize, we don't have anybody there yet, but we stand ready to go if they make the request. So back to fisheries. Several years ago, we started experiencing problems on several of our rivers. Caney Fork always kind of comes to mind at first, but there's also others. The Buffalo, Watauga, South Holston, all of those have the opportunity to have conflicts because of the number of people who utilize them just from a recreational standpoint and boating, and then those people who are there just to fish. And some of those areas, of course, are very wadeable, if that's a word, but those people who are in those streams wading have to dodge those craft as they come down, and a lot of the people that are in those craft, probably the first time they were ever in a canoe, a kayak, they go through rental companies, then they've had no training, they get on there, they run into fishermen get aggravated, on and on. So all those things are happening. So we put together a committee of people and tried to address that, went through trying to go, we pulled in the users, we pulled in guides, we pulled in users, we pulled in the people who rent the canoes and kayaks, and said, we really need to all live together with this. What can we do? So we came up with some ideas to educate. Part of those went to the canoe rentals and the kayak rentals, saying, please do this when your people rent these things, give them this brochure. We put together some what we call river bags, those things that are, that you can put all kinds of stuff in when you're on the river, but it had a message on it. Here's how we all live together. So we did all those educational things. Well, that's been, I can't remember how many years ago, probably 3 or 4 at least, when we did that at the last time. And things have kind of escalated, especially on the Caney Fork. The Caney Fork now has a number of commercial rental folks who are obviously making a living, putting people on the river, but the access on the Candy Fork and on some of the others as well is so limited that as those people are coming in, they're bringing in huge trailers of craft. And as they do that, some of them are actually going way too far and giving their orientations and all that kind of thing while they block the access area. And some fishermen are complaining of waiting up to an hour before they can put their boats in because of the rental people taking up the access area. We utilized our rules and regulations to put in place a thing that said no commercial use of access areas that the TWRA owns. That doesn't apply to TVA or Corps of Engineers, and of course, depending on which river you're on, if you're on the Watauga and the South Holston, it's going to be TVA. If you're on the Candy Fork, it's the Corps of Engineers. So anything that they have belongs to them, and it's up to them to regulate those things as they see best. But on our access areas, we came up with a standard. The rule says you can't use it for commercial purposes, but we knew we had to be somewhat judicious in how we applied that, because that would, if you went to the letter of the law, would mean that a commercial fisherman couldn't put his boat in there. A person who's guiding couldn't put a boat in there. So we said, we won't use that rule except to the extent you should only utilize that area at the same amount of time that it would approximately take anybody to put a boat in. Well, that's obviously being exceeded significantly on those rivers. So we know that it's going to involve commerce because of all the people who are in the rental businesses and all those things. It's going to involve the fishing side of folks, not only the trout fishermen, but the others. It's going to involve those people who just like to canoe and kayak, and some of those have pastoral to slight whitewater that they're going down. So there's so many interests in putting it together. We want to reenact what we did a few years ago and pull those people back together that are involved in this, but we're going to approach it slightly differently this time. On the 18th, we've asked the regulatory agencies to meet with us first. And by the regulatory agencies, I mean any agency that is on these waterways that has the opportunity to apply either state or federal regulations. So with that, we've only asked those representatives to come in, not necessarily that we're jumping forward to say that we're going to pass a bunch of regulations or we're going to go forward and try to get a bunch of laws passed. What we are saying, among those regulatory agencies, what possibilities do you have within your jurisdiction that could apply if we needed to? And then secondly, do you have the will to put those in place if it comes to a point where the group as a whole says, here's what we need to do, and it's your agency that needs to come forward with that rule? Are you willing to do that? So that's the first step in this. Shortly after that, we will come back and utilize what we've learned from that to pull the greater group back in, the same organizations we talked about before, the rental agencies, the fishermen, all those other people that have a vested interest in that, and see where we can come to some kind of idea of how to, I hate to use the word regulate, but to control the utilization of those rivers for all the different interests, and they all have a legal right to be there. And that's the part that gets kind of difficult. Some states, West Virginia, for instance, they have an entire commission, like you all, that deal with nothing but rafting because they have a lot of whitewater rivers there. So I don't know where we'll end up, but this is our start. And for the most part, after Labor Day, which we're almost there, Labor Day, things really slow down in terms of those conflicts because a lot of people are back in school, water gets cold, the evenings get cold, people don't utilize it for as much recreational use as they did before other than fishing. So it gives us a little window to look through this winter to try to come up with something late fall, early spring to come back to you all and say, here's what we think consensus-wise from this committee as to where we might move to. So with that, that's kind of where we are, Madam Chairman, and hopefully we'll have something back to you fairly soon.
Very much. Any questions?
Yeah, I think that was a great review, and just want to reiterate, because this has been an issue that I've gotten more emails and calls about than anything else since I've been on the commission, and you know, I think we definitely do have a problem, and I would think it's important for folks to understand, or sportsmen to know, that we're not ignoring this, but like you mentioned, there's just our authority is restricted on much of what's going on. We can, as you said, we can control our access points, but other than that, it's up to other agencies. And I think a lot of folks, And I assumed the same before it got involved and learning the issues, that you think, well, the TWRA could just fix this, but we can't. You know, we just can't magically fix it. And Frank Fiss and I visited twice to, you know, just see what's going on, talk to the outfitters, and it's a complicated problem that I think it's important for folks to understand. We are working on it, but it's, you know, it's not a simple answer.
And just to give you just a little more detail to that, Commissioner Cook, the regulatory agencies we're looking at is the U.S. Coast Guard, TVA, Corps of Engineers, U.S. Forest Service, Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, because there are state scenic rivers, there are designated rivers that go through U.S. Forest Service where they have a specific jurisdiction, and the Corps and TVA also have their own, and if the U.S. Coast Guard declares that these are navigable waters, that brings on a whole nother set of issues that we have to look at. And along that line too, that outside of this committee, there's been a number of questions, if I may just go on this for a second, been a number of questions about non-powered boats and registration and our numbering. And a lot of our fishermen ask, why do they not have to register their boats when we have to register ours? That's another process. Right now, they're exempted in state law and don't have to be registered or numbered. And not to get way down in the weeds, but numbering a boat and registering a boat are two different things. And we have some issues there that we can look at to go either way if that's where the group as a whole decides that it'd be something to look at. But it would take legislation from the legislature, not from the commission. The commission would end up, I think, with rules that you would have to come back and do. But I think the legislature is going to have to change the law that would give you the ability to regulate those craft, if in fact that's where we go. I'm not saying we are. And along that same line, today, at 1 o'clock, which I guess is still going on, there's a report from TWRA, which is the study committee for the legislature who looks at whatever issues, and they asked TWRA to study boat titling. Boat titling has come up in the past at least 4 times that I can think of, and there was legislation to begin titling boats like you would title cars. And there are about 35 states that title boats, and Tennessee obviously is not a title state. So they're giving that report, and we're listed in that report as, if titling happens, probably this agency is the one that would title boats since we do the registration. So don't know where that will end up either. Just wanted you to know that that's all taking place. So.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to echo Chairman Cook's comments about the increasing intensity among the user groups. And I think the last few years, there have been a lot of efforts that recognize that there's an issue, but perhaps didn't get to solutions. And it appears, and particularly as Tennessee appropriately markets itself to really encourage thoughtful use, not only for hunters and sportsmen, but also other folks, where this is likely going to only increase in terms of challenge. And I want to personally say thank you for the efforts, not only for the governmental agencies that are going to huddle, but also our external partners. Like you, nobody loves regulations, but there's a fairness issue of how to balance different interests, and regulations are our state's process of being able to try to be fair and also be problem solvers. So while we may not have exclusive domain in this area, I do think that the folks that we represent and all of these governmental agencies represent, they do expect us to sort through all of this and find the right solution so that all these user groups can figure out something that works, and regulations are a possibility for that. So while I know that's not the answer you're looking for, I'm very comfortable with thoughtful people internally and externally coming together and finding solutions, and I think we ought to be as proactive as possible. I would love to see next spring, before the traffic inevitably picks back up, and probably in greater numbers. I've spent the last 3 days in a health summit on encouraging folks to be more active in the outdoors, and we think that's a really good thing. It's going to increase if we're doing our job as a state and increasing our health outcomes. So thank you, Ed, and for your team getting into this. It's going to take a lot of effort to come to a consensus with all these groups, and I don't know if wouldn't want to, I'm going to do it, and I shouldn't call out our friend Mike Butler with the Wildlife Federation and others, but we've got lots of stakeholder and constituency groups who are trying to balance all these interests, and to the extent they have folks who might offer productive solutions to answer these questions, I'd love to get that done before traffic picks up next spring.
And Mike and I have actually met very recently and talked about this and several other issues, so look forward to working with them in a number of groups, from Trout Unlimited to the recreational people. And just might mention, Tennessee's listed as one of the top 10 states in the nation in which to boat. And then you look at Jackson Kayaks. When he brought his business here, he said, I looked all over the United States. I was thinking about Oregon, but Tennessee was the place I thought was the best place to come if you wanted to canoe and kayak. So lots of interest, and you're right, it'll only increase. Thank you.
Director Carter, I think, did you have a question for him?
No, while we were still, we hadn't left Fisheries yet. I
No, we
wanted to,
haven't, but you had a question for
I have
Director
a
Carter?
question about this.
go ahead.
Just a suggestion, maybe we could require everybody that puts in on one of our boat ramps to have a hunting and fishing license.
That's a thought.
So there.
It's a great idea. I'll second it.
Okay, before we leave, you will have a question.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to recognize a couple people real quick while we're on Fisheries. I came with an idea last year that some constituents of mine that do a lot of fishing in the wintertime had a couple ideas and some concerns, and I want to thank Frank and Bart Carter and John Hammonds for taking that idea to the next level. And they did a tagging procedure on some smallmouth in really extremely deep water, and we really got really good results back. It wasn't a huge sample, but these guys did a fantastic job, and I was not able to be at John's presentation at the Bass Pro. Was that week before last, I think. John invited me, but I was tied up, but I had a few of my good friends that were there, and even we solicited, what do we have, about 8 or 9 different anglers help put that thing together, I think, for us. I got several together to help Bart and John do that, and those guys did a stand-up job, and I just want to say, I want to recognize you guys for doing a good job on that, and a great presentation. And John, your name came up a lot with some of my guys the other day. They said, man, that was really informative and really good. Just want to say thank you to you guys.
Great, thank you, Chairman King. I'll turn to Chairman Cox for the Retention and Recruitment Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. John King.
Thank you, Chairman Cox. I appreciate that. Other commissioners, thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to come before you today and share some information about a really good news item, and that is the TOYS program, or Tennessee Outdoor Youth Summit. It just had its most recent iteration here. I'm digging down to get to my level where I can get the video up here for just a second. But my main job here today is I'm going to start the video and do a little introduction of the person who is taken this bull by the horns and has really done a great job with the Tennessee Outdoors Youth Summit program. Her name is Lacey Lane. She's no stranger to a lot of the folks in the room. She started hunting when she was 10 with her dad and a fellow sitting back there with her named Lance Ryder, and cut her teeth on the SCTP program growing up. And I hope I don't embarrass you, Lacey, but some of my earliest remembrances of you is when you'd show up to get your reward or awards at the commission meetings and things. Lacey would have that cute little bruise on her cheek from all the shooting she had been doing. And anyway, we really appreciate her. She's a part of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Foundation now, and she heads up the Tennessee Scholastic Action Shooting Sports Program. That includes pistols and rifles. And so anyway, I'm going to start this little video. I think Jason Harmon had a hand in collecting some of the video, and Barry did as well. We've recruited him to run camera 3 in Jason's absence, and anyway, we appreciate him and appreciate him putting this short video together. And after that, Lacey will join you, and she's got some information and stats to share with you.
But nice and tight. You're gonna lift up your arms. And see, that's not gonna go anywhere. That could probably be a little bit tighter, but that's how you want it.
Okay, yeah, you're good.
And break off into twos like you probably already have. We'll get you out on the canoes and we'll do some drills.
You see how clear my hand is? That's how clear that needs to be, okay? This needs to be blurry, and your target needs to be blurry. Focus only on that tip of that front side, okay? That's what you need to focus on.
I think you shot to the right of it.
Take our powder measure,
Yeah, I see people doing that
set
all
on
the time.
50 grains.
People are gonna put the patch over the bore, and we're gonna center it. And then you take the ball, and you put it in the patch.
Here, start down here and just kind of work your way down. There you go.
Oh yeah. Wasn't bad, was it? Now it makes a lot of noise, a lot of smoke. You knocked the fire out of it. All right, let's go ahead. Yeah, hit. Good.
We talked about Tennessee, how diverse this place is. You are an hour away from going and looking at elk.
We teach them all to do the same thing. They're going to do a wildlife detection in the field, in the woods, inside of a barn or a building, and vehicle searches.
During deer season, the gun season, muzzleloader in the gun, okay? Yeah, we're 500 square inches of blaze orange.
If that's what it is underneath it, these, if you want those, you can pick those out.
Why are these?
These are native.
Just have to be patient with them and don't overcall to him. If he's going to come, he's going to keep coming. He's going to keep inching his way in. You might give him a little bit of a call every once in a while.
Been nice and tight.
Okay, thank you for having me, Commissioners. I know a lot of you, some of you I don't know, but this was our first year to have toys in Crossville. Those of you know, toys has been in Clarksville for many years, and Officer Odom had run toys there, and we wanted to give kids across the state a chance to come to toys, so we moved it to a location where it's a more of an outdoor camp, and it gives the kids an opportunity to, you know, be able to stay on site in bunk houses and not have to be bused from a hotel back and forth. And it gave me an opportunity to add more classes that were more quality classes than have a lot of classes altogether. But it was a better camp altogether. We had 90 kids this year. Normally we set our goal at 120. I set my cap this year at 100, so I had 90, which I thought was pretty good for the first year there. So, is there any questions?
Madam Chairman?
Thank you. I promise I'm going to limit my talking right after this comment. So y'all, if y'all don't know Lacey Lane, I'm going to tell a quick story about her, and it's going to embarrass her, but I don't care.
It's okay.
So the first time I met Lacey, well, that's not true. Third time I met Lacey and got to visit with her was the third year I got to hunt with her in West Tennessee with Commissioner King and other women who like to gather annually to celebrate the great outdoors at the wonderful hosting of our agency. And Lacey had, you know those braces that have Velcro on that go from your hip to your foot, right? Follow me? So she has this on. It's raining buckets. It is raining and raining and raining, and we're out there, like it always is when we go hunt. Raining and raining and raining. She's in this high kind of field trial chair is what we would call it, or a tailgating chair, kind of high up. She's sitting down with a black plastic bag wrapped around that brace on her leg. And when the ducks finally came and we were sort of given the okay to go ahead and mount our guns and shoot, in the time it took us to get our guns to our shoulder properly, she had already gotten up out of her chair, shouldered her gun, and taken the bird. It was one of the most remarkable things I'd ever seen in my life. And she's an incredible marksman and outdoors person, and I'm really glad that you're so successful doing what you're doing. This is a great program.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to the agency. Region 3 really stepped to the plate this year, and it was tremendous. I couldn't ask for better toys this year. It was great.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Is this only located in Crossville, offered in Crossville?
As of
For
right
right
now,
now?
we only
Okay.
have one toys, but our goal is to increase this and maybe get one in every part of the region of the state. That would be my goal.
Great, okay. Thank you, it's wonderful.
I will follow up with what the chairman said. Lacey's a special young lady. She came up, I first met her in the SCTP. I'm not sure, she might have been Lance. I'm not sure if she was on your team or whatever, but she's a special young lady and doing a great job. We appreciate it. Madam Chairman, I believe that's all we got.
I've had a request for a 15-minute break, if that works for everybody, and then we'll come back and we'll go straight into boating and law enforcement.